today. Hi everyone, this is Deemcnairontheair and we are on the air, and that's the new name of the Deemcnairontheair on the Air show. I have a very, very talented, gifted, anointed, wise young man sitting to my right, and if you're looking straight in the TV, not that cockeyed, he is on your left, and he's going to share with us today. But before he even begins, I want to tell you that Darryl Owens, Reverend Darryl Owens, is more than a reverend. He's more than a Darryl or a Mr. Owens. He is a man who has embraced a love for all of God's people, all of the community, whether you're male or female, young or a little seasoned, like myself, or you're professional, you're a retiree, who or whatever you are, Mr. Owens, Reverend Owens, has declared he will go out and start to love you where you are, how you are, doing whatever you were doing. Doesn't mean he's going to condone it. But I share all of that because the first show of 2018 under Deemcnairontheair on the air, I wanted to reach out and touch some of you all. You're grieving in many areas of your life. And today, Reverend Darryl Owens, a man who's so wise, who's so experienced, is going to give us some enlightenment on a variety of topics, all related to how you can be whole with nothing missing, nothing broken, and nothing lacking. Reverend Darryl Owens, thank you.
Well, thank you.
Greet the audience. Share whatever you like. I'm so glad you're here.
Thank you. And good afternoon, everyone. So glad that you're joining us for this time of inspiration. And thank you so much, Dee McNair, for this invitation, and for Mr. McNair, who is helping us as well. So I love the fact that you talked about grief. I am a professional, board-certified hospital chaplain and grief counselor at UNC Hospitals in Chapel Hill. And so I deal with a lot of people in crisis, and especially when it comes to grief, as you mentioned. A lot of us don't always know what to do when it comes to grief. Grief is a reaction to loss. And the loss that we may have experienced in life could have been connected to death, and it couldn't have been connected to death either. So you can experience grief in many different ways. Many people, grief happens with the breakup of a relationship, or you could have just graduated from college and moved halfway across the United States, and you're not with your own community of family and friends that you've grown up with, and you can experience grief there. Many of us have walked around with what I call a litany of grief, meaning a history of grief, level upon level upon level upon level. And when you walk around and you try to act like everything is great and you don't have any grief, grief can come out at inopportune times. We don't always know what to do with it because we don't want anybody to think we're flawed, and we want to put our best foot or our best face forward.
Oh, the
and
lady's
that's not
face,
good.
you know, we'll plaster whatever we got to plaster on there for the best face forward. But you said at inopportune times, the grief will come out.
It'll come out. You can be with someone else who is having some kind of experience where they're experiencing some kind of loss, and then you might be there to help them, to try to comfort them, and then when you think about the conversation, it's been all about me. I'm supposed to be helping you, but I wound up talking all about me and my stuff. That tells me I've got a lot of stuff I haven't dealt with yet, because I've not even been able to put my stuff to the side, my grief issues, my history of grief to the side, to be able to support you with what you're going through.
So, for example, would that be like, let's say if I was a widow, maybe I lost my spouse 5 years ago, but I'm about to comfort another woman who's lost her husband 2 weeks ago. But if that 10-minute conversation I'm having with her is 8 minutes of me talking about my husband, whether I'm sharing positive memories or the funeral arrangements or the stresses of it, if the majority of the conversation is about my loss, I'm not really helping them, because I'm actually trying to help myself through my own grief that I thought, because I'm the married widow, you know, that's a worldly little term there, but some people call it the married widow. I'm not over it, but I look good.
True.
I sound good.
Right.
I'm even living good off the insurance money, but I'm not over it because I'm spending too much time talking about mine.
Exactly. And it doesn't mean that you ever get over grief as if it's a virus. You live with it. I in particular deal with a lot of parents whose babies have died either during the pregnancy or right afterwards. And something they've said to me is that you never get over the loss or the death. You learn to live with the pain of the death. And that's what many of us do. When that person in our life has died, yes, especially if they're Christian and we believe in the afterlife, we're very grateful that they're not suffering or going through things, but we still feel that loss because we're human beings and we've had a relationship. And the loss of that relationship is very life altering because you now have to learn to live your life without that person. So if I'm that widower and my wife died 5 years ago, and I'm talking to another friend whose wife just died, of course it's going to trigger memories. It's going to trigger my grief. It doesn't mean that I'm unhealthy or that I'm in need of a lot of extra help, but just recognize it for what it is. But it says that if like you said in a 10-minute conversation, 8 minutes of it is about me, 2 minutes is about you, then that tells me I still have some stuff to work on, which is okay. Recognize it for what it is and then do the work.
And maybe do the work together, from a female perspective. And you all know Dee's maybe not the traditional female. One of the things I tell people sometimes when they ask me, not so much just about grief, about anything that they're going through and they ask me for help, I know I'm not perfect. And I'll say, I don't know, but I'm willing to be your partner to get some answers, to get some help. Because I would, really admonish people to say, don't always feel like you have to have the answer. And I know for a fact in listening to you, Dee may be actually off the air asking for a one-on-one counseling session because a lot of times I've had people who feel I don't grieve. And so I'd like to go back and talk about when you said most inopportune times. What is an example of this grief being demonstrated or expressed? Because a lot of people have said I don't grieve because they are looking for tears or for me to fall apart. And I've said, no, I'm processing it based on my cultural background, my upbringing, but also what allows me for my personality to have some control. And part of that is not crying every second of every hour of every day. I have found it doesn't profit me anything. Versus a lot of times surrounding myself around people who have already gone through it a day ahead of me or a week ahead of me. It doesn't even have to be years. And I'm able to watch them and revalidate that it's okay what I am or am not feeling. And for me, that's my healing. But what are some of these unknown, at that moment, inopportune times that you see? What is it? Anger? Is it?
It can be anger. It can be many different things. I want to go back to something you just said about the way you grieve and people judging you grieve. There are two wonderful authors who've done a lot of research together, doctors Terry Martin and Ken Doka. And Ken Doka is a clergy person as well. And they've done a lot of work together on different types of grief. There are many different grief. I belong to a national organization called ADEC, Association for Death Education and Counseling.
And we've got Association for Death Education and Counseling. I tell you guys to always get a notepad because the whole purpose of me being here is to come into your life to jumpstart something positive. So don't worry, if you didn't have your notepad, go get it quick. But Dee will promise you I'll give you some of these resources at the end of the show.
And the website is adec.org. And it will tell you a lot of information. It's a good clearinghouse for a lot of different researchers about death and dying. There are two, Doka and Martin talks about two different types of grievers. One is what we call an instrumental griever, which you just described as yourself. That instrumental griever is feeling the grief, dealing with the grief, but they may not emote it. They may not show it in tears and emotional demonstration as much. But it's inside. They're thinking it. They're working it through. I grieve that way a lot. Then there are also what we call intuitive grievers. They may emote. Intuitive grievers, you will see crying, and they want to discuss it and things like that. My wife is more of an intuitive griever. Now, both the instrumental griever and the intuitive griever are not gender related.
And I will say, as you